afternoon, everyone. Today is Saturday, July 31st. It is the obligatory memorial of St. Ignatius of Loyola. St. Ignatius is the founder of the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuits. A wonderful man, a wonderful love of Jesus Christ, and really great leader, a missionary leader. You know, the Jesuits led our country into the understanding and the knowledge of Jesus Christ. They were missionaries, evangelizers. They brought the faith to this country in many ways and in many other countries. I think it's just beautiful that a group of men and women of other religious congregations, but the group of men who make up the Jesuits, they are priests and brothers. They do not have a sister group of religious women. So it is men who are priests and brothers who really brought the faith to many parts of this country, to this archdiocese. Remember, Old St. Joe's at 4th and Willings Avenue has been staffed by the Society of Jesus since the 1700s. Isn't that amazing? Beautiful. That's where the St. Joe's University began, also at 4th and Willings. Just the history of the archdiocese and the history of these men bringing the faith to our country and other countries in our world. It's amazing when you read their lives. I mean, the sacrifices they have made, and also they have shed their own blood and died for the faith. But today, as we celebrate the memorial of St. Ignatius of Loyola, I'm remembering a couple things. I'm remembering how these men brought the faith to an area in which they were not always so comfortable with. Not only this country, but maybe other countries. And I always think of those missionaries who do that. You know, to begin with nothing. Nothing. Remember, the Lord said, don't carry anything with you, don't bring this, don't bring that, just go. The complete dependence on God. A complete dependence, a complete surrender and trust to God. The Jesuits are also noted for their intellect and their intellectual ability. As you know, many of them are in higher education. They teach at colleges and universities. Faith-seeking understanding. And that's why universities in the Catholic tradition was always established. It was always that faith-seeking understanding. So we want to learn more about our faith. That's why I do this. These YouTube reflections are a moment for us to learn about our Catholic faith. But not just to learn about the Catholic faith for this segment, but I want us to take it in, breathe it in, and be able to articulate it to other people. So when you're faced with a situation, when you're faced with a question from another person, when you're faced with a dilemma, I want you to be able to really remember what our faith teaches and be able to articulate that back. To remember for yourself and also to be able to communicate it to other people. That's what evangelization is. Remember, we talk about not just by saying, this is just what I believe. don't know if people who are trying to seek God and come back into the life of the church and the practice of their Catholic faith, if they're going to settle for, well, it's just what I believe. Is it what you believe or what the church believes? That's why we say we have to be very careful with our language. You know, when I hear that, when people say that, like I'll hear it and people say, well, that's what I believe. No, it's not what you believe. Obviously, someone has given you the faith. Someone shared the faith with you. This is what the church believes. I'm part of the church, so therefore I believe. It's that whole credo. I believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, of things visible and invisible. So this credo, this belief, this, of course, deposit of faith that we receive it and we share it. Just like the Jesuits shared the faith. They brought the faith to countries, communities. They established parishes with the blessing of the bishop, right? Because religious communities can't just come into a diocese or an archdiocese without the blessing of the bishop. So religious men and women, when they come in, they first go to the bishop. They say, can I come in and establish a parish here? Can I come in and establish a school here? So the bishop or the archbishop has to give his blessing to that. Because the bishop is, of course, the teacher in the diocese of the faith. He's the teacher. He's the governor. He's the sanctifier. That threefold ministry that the bishop has. So he extends that invitation for other priests, brothers, and sisters to come in and to partner with him in bringing the faith to that territory which we call a diocese or an archdiocese. Well, when was our archdiocese founded? It was founded in 1808. So before the diocese was established, the Jesuits came. But obviously this must have been a diocese or an archdiocese somewhere else, right? Yes. It was a large diocese. You know of? Baltimore. We broke from Baltimore in 1808 and established our own diocese in 1808. Later on, we became an archdiocese. But at the beginning, we weren't. We were a diocese in the beginning. So how beautiful is that? Did you ever study the history of the diocese? Did you ever study the history in which, how this all happened? Where the first parish was? You know, who were the first religious that came and settled here? You know, where was the first school? How all that was established. And when we broke from Baltimore and we established our own diocese, and how the faith was cultivated by the people and parents, the community, religious congregations and orders just flourished more and more because people owned the faith. People held the faith dear to them, and they shared it with their children. They promoted the faith in everything they said and did. So the Jesuits came here in the 1700s. It wasn't our diocese, but they came here and they settled, of course, in the city of Philadelphia. The city of Philadelphia. And in the city of Philadelphia, they settled right around 4th Street, 4th and Willings Alley. That's where St. Joe's Church, has been established. And right down the street is St. Mary's. So they call them now Old St. Mary's and Old St. Joe's. Old St. Mary's, that was our first cathedral. I don't know if you know that. Old St. Joe's was not, because it was staffed by a religious community, where Old St. Mary's was staffed by diocesan priests. Just a little bit of information. Some of you I know read about history of the church, history of the diocese, and everything that I'm speaking about. It's kind of fascinating, I think. And it's kind of nice that we stand on their shoulders. We stand on their shoulders because we continue now the work that they began in the name of Christ. And don't you think there's missionary work to be done today? I absolutely, positively, with all my heart, believe that there has to be continual evangelization and missionary work. So when you think of missionary work, don't think of foreign lands. I think they have the faith, sometimes stronger than we do in developed lands. Because in developed lands, we have given up the faith because we're so sophisticated. We got science and we got education, so we don't need God or religion as much as people would think. We need it more than ever. People think that you only believe in God or religion is because you're illiterate, you're not educated. But when you're educated and sophisticated, why do you need God? Isn't that sad? So we need God in the United States more than ever. We need God, and we need to promote the faith in our own archdiocese. Even though all of us have the faith, we need to continue to promote it. And I mean that among the people, among families. How many families practice the Catholic faith? That means they attend Mass, they receive the sacraments, they go to confession regularly, they pray the rosary. How many? That's important to know. It's important to know and to promote the faith. So when I think of Ignatius of Loyola and the Jesuits and all their traveling and their settling in places to bring the faith to people that have never heard of it, there must be now a renewed sense of faith that we now carry on. In other words, okay, I'm sure people have heard of Jesus Christ, the Blessed Mother, the Apostles. I'm sure everyone that you talk about has heard of the Catholic Church. Fine. Now what about a renewed sense of that faith? Because they've heard it, but left it. Now how do you bring all of this back? How do you bring it back? Is it lost? Is it lost for good? Are the numbers of people believing and practicing going to continue to go down until there's fewer parishes? What do we do to bring it back up again? Witnessing by our daily lives, speaking by our daily lives, praying by our daily lives? Absolutely. Absolutely. And promoting all that is good, holy, just, and pure. Promoting all that. Promoting the celebration of Mass reverently. Promoting the celebration of the sacraments reverently. Understanding what the sacraments are. That they're not just rituals to be accomplished, but faith experiences to be lived. All of that and much more. I'm having a wedding today, and that's beautiful. How about promoting weddings in a church? Promoting funeral masses of a loved one that died at Mass. How often do we say all these things? Or is it going to happen when it's too late and there's hardly anything left? So the bishops of Pennsylvania lifted the dispensation. Remember, we have a dispensation because of the health pandemic. It's like you're not obligated to attend Mass because of a major health pandemic. So that happened for what, maybe 17 months? Okay. Well, on August 15th, we need to come back. Will that 17 months be too comfortable for people to come back? When they've got comfortable in vehicles like I'm doing right now? Watch it. Remember, watching it is not fulfilling the obligation. It's only when you're sick does that fulfill the obligation. We all need to have a renewed sense of the faith like Ignatius of Loyola did. And really promote it. We ask God to bless our archdiocese and to strengthen the faith that's within this archdiocese in all of our 214 parishes, our 15 high schools, our 102 elementary or regional schools, and our 4 schools of special education. Our families to be renewed in faith. People practicing their Catholic faith. When they get married within the context of the sacrament. And when they die, they want to go before the Lord at Mass, at a funeral Mass, as we pray together for the soul. But if you don't believe, none of that is important. If you're not a believer, if you're too sophisticated for that, and just think God is in my heart, I don't need any of that stuff, then there is no faith. You know, sometimes people become their own religion. So it's much to think about today on this memorial of Ignatius of Loyola. And asking God to give us a sense of renewal, to give us a little chutzpah. Did you ever hear that word that the Jewish community here uses? Chutzpah. In other words, I think Ignatius of Loyola had chutzpah. I think St. Paul had chutzpah. I think these people who, you know, are really have the faith to evangelize and to be missionary have chutzpah. I think some of you have chutzpah. You know, parents and grandparents, that's good. They have chutzpah. It's a good thing. That you're not like under a rock and just saying, I don't know, I don't get involved. But it's the people that get involved that get everything moving and going. That's why Jesus said, go. Go and proclaim the good news to all nations, having them baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So let's go. Let's go forth like Ignatius of Loyola did to promote the faith. Have a nice day, everybody.